Hey guys, Andrew here. And this is part 2 of my story. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, hit pause, go back and check it out, because none of this will make sense without it. So yeah, quick recap. I found out my wife Charlotte was cheating, she divorced me, took my house, blackmailed me, and then one night at a bar I met a guy named Bruce. He showed me a picture of his ex-wife. And it turned out to be the same woman. That's where we left off. And trust me, things only get crazier from here. You ever have one of those moments where the universe just slaps you in the face and says, "Wake up"? That's what that night at the bar with Bruce felt like. Two strangers, same woman, same nightmare, same wrecked lives. At first, we just sat there in shock, staring at each other like idiots. Then we started connecting the dots. His story mirrored mine almost word for word. The whirlwind romance, the fast marriage, the money drains, the explosive arguments, and finally, the blackmail. "Let me guess," I said, half joking, half dreading the answer. "She's got photos?" Bruce laughed bitterly. "Yep. Thought I was the only fool dumb enough to let her pull that trick. It was insane. Like finding out your personal hell was just one branch of a whole damn franchise." Over the next few weeks, Bruce and I became friends. Strange, right? Two guys bonded over being conned by the same woman. But it gave me a weird sense of relief, knowing I wasn't crazy. That it wasn't just me. We started comparing notes, dates, places, names. And that's when we noticed something. Charlotte had a pattern. She wasn't just dating and dumping. She was running a full-blown operation. One night, Bruce showed me something that made my skin crawl. He'd been following her Instagram. She never blocked him, maybe because she liked rubbing salt in the wound. Anyway, she posted a casual picture at a Starbucks in Littleton. Nothing unusual. Just a latte and her manicured hand holding the cup. But in the reflection of the window, you could see a man sitting across from her. Not just any man. A mountain of a guy. 6'3", jacked like he lived in the gym, with this shaved head and tattoo sleeve. "Who the hell is that?" I asked. Bruce's jaw tightened. "That's her first husband." I almost spit out my drink. "First husband?" She told me I was her first. "Yeah," Bruce said flatly. She told me the same. Turns out, Charlotte had been married before. To this guy, let's call him Jake. And guess what? They never really split. They were still together. My ex-wife was running cons with her actual husband. The more we dug, the uglier it got. We tracked her movements. Sometimes Bruce would follow her car, a white Lexus RX she bought with his money. Other times, I'd keep tabs through her socials. And every time she met up to collect hush money, Jake was there. Not front and center, but always close by. Watching. Guarding her. I remember one night clear as day. January 2021. Charlotte texted me, demanding another $5,000. Said if I didn't bring it in cash to the parking lot behind a Safeway in Lakewood, she'd ruin me. I was shaking with rage. But instead of giving in, I told Bruce. We drove there together. Parked far back, lights off, watching. Sure enough, Charlotte pulled up in her Lexus. A few minutes later, a black Dodge Ram rolled in. Out stepped Jake. Bigger than life. He leaned against the truck, arms crossed, while Charlotte paced around, checking her phone. She was waiting for me. For her payday. But I didn't show. Instead, I sat there, hidden, watching the whole disgusting charade unfold. And in that moment, it hit me. This wasn't just personal. This was a business. Bruce and I decided to dig deeper. He still had access to some of their old financial records, joint accounts from when they were married. I had a buddy from college who worked at a bank in Aurora and owed me a favor. We started piecing together what we could. The numbers were insane. Transfers, deposits, withdrawals. Charlotte wasn't sitting on a few grand. She had hundreds of thousands, all stashed across multiple accounts, some in her name, some in Jake's. And get this, the timeline matched perfectly with her relationships. Each time she'd divorce some guy, or squeeze him with blackmail, the account balance would jump. We were looking at years of this. A full career built on lies, seduction, and extortion. The more evidence we gathered, the angrier I got. I thought back to the night she told me she had a migraine on our anniversary. The spa days. The cousin trips to Dallas. All lies. All setups. And I let it happen. But not anymore. Bruce felt the same. He told me, "Man, she wrecked my life. Took everything I had. If we don't stop her, she's just gonna keep finding new suckers." And he was right. So we made a decision. We were gonna take her down. Now, don't get me wrong. I wasn't some action hero ready to storm in guns blazing. I was terrified. This wasn't just Charlotte anymore. It was Jake too. And Jake. He looked like the kind of guy who snapped necks for fun. But the anger outweighed the fear. We started documenting everything. Screenshots of her messages. Photos of her meetings. Bank statements. Bruce even managed to record a phone call where she flat out demanded money, threatening to leak his photos. We built a whole damn case file. And finally, one night in March 2021, we walked it all into the Denver Police Department. I'll never forget the look on the officer's face as we laid it all out. At first, he seemed skeptical, like we were just bitter ex-husbands exaggerating. But once he saw the bank records, the messages, the photos of Jake hovering in the background, his eyes widened. "This is extortion," he said quietly. "And if what you're saying is true, conspiracy to commit fraud." Finally, someone believed us. The investigation took months. Bruce and I kept our heads down, pretended to play along whenever Charlotte reached out. She thought we were still her puppets. But behind the scenes, the cops were watching, building their own case. Then, in June 2021, it all came crashing down for her. Charlotte showed up for another drop at a strip mall parking lot in Englewood. Jake was with her as always. Only this time, instead of collecting envelopes of cash, they got surrounded by unmarked police cars. I wasn't there. The detectives told us to stay away. But Bruce and I got the call later that night. They were both in custody, charged with extortion, fraud, and a laundry list of other crimes. It was over. I can't even describe the mix of emotions I felt when I heard the news. Relief, rage, satisfaction, bitter disappointment that I ever let it get that far. But mostly, peace. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. Charlotte and Jake had built their little empire on lies. And in the end, the lies finally caught up with them. When the call came in that Charlotte and Jake were officially in custody, I just sat on the edge of my bed in that little downtown apartment, staring at the wall. I should have been cheering, throwing a party, cracking open a bottle of Jack Daniels. And yeah, part of me wanted to. But another part of me just sat there numb. Because even though she'd wrecked me, taken everything, lied through her teeth, this was still the woman I once loved. The woman I thought I'd grow old with. Seeing her mugshot pop up on the Denver 7 News website? That hit me harder than I expected. The charges piled up fast. Extortion, fraud, identity theft, even wire fraud, because some of those blackmail payments had crossed state lines. Jake, being the muscle and the partner, got slapped with conspiracy charges and aiding and abetting. They both ended up sitting in county jail while the DA built the case. And get this. The cops told us they suspected Charlotte had pulled this trick on at least 4 other men in Colorado and Texas. It was bigger than we ever imagined. Meanwhile, my life slowly started crawling back together. I won't lie, the first few months after the arrest were rough. I'd walk into King Soopers or Target and half expect to bump into her. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, sweaty, convinced she was still out there plotting. Trauma doesn't just switch off. But things started shifting. I got promoted at work, finally able to focus again without her blowing up my phone every other hour. I reconnected with old friends I'd pushed away during the marriage, guys I hadn't seen since college. We started meeting up on Sundays for Broncos games, grilling out at someone's backyard instead of me sitting alone in my apartment. And, weirdly enough, I started smiling again. Bruce and I stayed close too. I mean, how could we not? We'd been through hell together. We joked sometimes that we should start a podcast, the Charlotte Survivors Club. Dark humor, yeah, but it helped. We grabbed beers every other Friday at that same dive bar on Colfax where we first met, swapping stories, laughing at ourselves, realizing life wasn't over. One night, Bruce looked at me and said, "Man, if nothing else, at least she gave us friendship." And you know what? He was right. As for Charlotte and Jake, last I heard, they both took plea deals. She got 5 years in prison. He got 7. Not life sentences, but enough to finally stop their little con business. The money. Most of it was gone, blown on cars, vacations, clothes. But the DA managed to seize about $200,000 from their accounts. Some of that went back to the victims, including me and Bruce. I won't say it made me whole, but seeing a check in the mail with restitution stamped on it, that was satisfying. And here's the biggest surprise. I started dating again. Slowly, cautiously, with walls so high you'd think I lived in a fortress. But eventually I met someone. Her name's Melissa. She's a nurse at UC Health. Sweet, grounded, nothing like Charlotte. She doesn't care about fancy vacations or Instagram followers. She cares about people. She cares about me. And maybe, just maybe, I'm starting to believe in love again. Looking back, I can't believe how close I came to losing everything. Not just money or a house, but myself. Charlotte almost broke me. Almost. But here's the thing. When you're standing in the wreckage of your life, you've only got 2 choices. Stay down or get up. And I chose to get up. Bruce did too. And together, we took down the one person who thought she could keep wrecking lives forever. So yeah, that's the aftermath. Pain, healing, redemption. But most of all, freedom. So here we are. If you've made it this far, you know more about me than most of my family does. And maybe you're wondering, what's the takeaway? What's the lesson in all this wreck of a story? Here's what I've learned. First, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. All those nights when Charlotte came home late, all those excuses about spa days and cousin trips. I knew deep down. I just didn't want to admit it. Don't ignore those little alarms in your head. They're there for a reason. Second, people aren't always who they pretend to be. Charlotte was charming, magnetic, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and own it. And I wanted to believe that was real. But sometimes the brightest smile hides the darkest intentions. And third, no matter how bad things get, you can climb back. I lost my house, my money, my pride. I got blackmailed, humiliated, dragged through hell. But I'm still here. I've got a good job, real friends, and a shot at happiness again. So if you're watching this and you're going through something similar, a toxic relationship, betrayal, heartbreak, let me tell you, it's not the end. You're stronger than you think. Honestly, I wouldn't be where I am without Bruce. Crazy how life works, right? I lost a wife but gained a friend. Sometimes the worst wrecks bring the best surprises. And as for Charlotte and Jake, well, they made their choices. They wanted easy money, easy thrills. Now they've got plenty of time behind bars to think about it. Me, I've got peace. And that's worth more than any house or bank account. So yeah, that's my story. If you've been through something similar, betrayal, divorce, whatever, drop it in the comments. I'd love to know I'm not the only one out there. And if you're still watching at this point, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're from. I read every single one. Because at the end of the day, stories like mine aren't just about the pain, they're about connection. About knowing we're not alone, even when life feels like it's falling apart. Thanks for sticking with me through this. And remember, no matter how messed up it gets, there's always a way out. Always.